He proposed to me at his sister's wedding. In front of 200 guests during the toasts, he took the microphone from the best man and got down on one knee. And I said yes, because what else do you say when everyone is watching and crying and filming, and you don't yet know that your fiancé has been renewing a lease with another woman's name on it for the past year? My name is Maya. I found out 4 days later. I'm going to walk you through exactly how, because the way it unfolded still doesn't feel real to me, even now. His name was Daniel. We'd been together 3 years, and he was good at the details that make a relationship feel safe. He remembered which of my coworkers I couldn't stand and why. He showed up 20 minutes early to everything, like being on time wasn't good enough. He made my father, a famously hard man to make laugh, actually laugh, more than once, at dinners I'd been dreading. When his sister Sarah got engaged and asked him to be in the wedding party, I was genuinely happy for their family. I had no idea he'd spent months quietly planning to turn her wedding into his own proposal, and even less idea why he'd needed the whole room as a witness. Here's the thing about a public proposal. It doesn't leave room for a real answer. You're standing in front of everyone who loves you. Camera phones raised, his mother already crying into a cocktail napkin, the DJ cutting the music low so the room could hear him clearly. He said my name into that microphone like it was the only word he'd ever wanted to say. And for 1 full minute, kneeling there in a rented tux in front of 200 people, he looked exactly like a man who meant it. I said yes. I cried real tears, the kind that surprise you when they come, and I meant them at the time. I remember thinking, in the middle of it, hand shaking as he slid the ring on, that I was lucky, that some people wait years for a moment like this, and I'd gotten mine at 29, surrounded by everyone I loved. 4 days later, I was doing laundry and needed his laptop to print a boarding pass for a trip we had planned. His email was still logged in from the night before. I wasn't looking for anything. I typed boarding pass into the search bar, the way you do when you're thinking about exactly one thing and nothing else. The results included an email that had nothing to do with boarding passes, a lease renewal confirmation, dated 3 weeks earlier from a building I didn't recognize. 2 names on the signature page, his and a name I had never once heard him mention in 3 years together. I sat on the bathroom floor with the laptop open for a long time before I actually read it. Rent, deposit, both signatures, dated the same week he'd been asking his sister for advice on ring sizes. Advice I now understood had been for an entirely different ring than mine. I called my best friend Sophia before I did anything else. She picked up on the second ring, still hearing wedding planning cheer in my voice from the day before. "Hey, did the caterer call you back about—" "I need you to not react yet," I said, cutting her off. "I need you to just listen first." I read her the lease out loud, my voice flat and mechanical, like reading it any other way might make it more real. She was quiet for a second after I finished. "Maya," she said slowly, "that's not a coincidence. That's a whole second apartment." I didn't confront him that night. Sophia showed up at my apartment 20 minutes after we hung up, still in her work clothes, and sat with me on the bathroom floor because I couldn't seem to make myself get up off it. She didn't tell me what to do. She just asked, gently, why I wasn't calling him right that second, and I told her the truth. I needed to know exactly what I was looking at before I said anything, because if I was wrong about this, a wrong accusation could burn down something real over a misunderstanding. I needed certainty, not a feeling. Sophia nodded slowly, then said, "Okay, then let's get certain," and pulled her laptop out of her bag right there on my bathroom floor, like this was simply the next item on a to-do list that had to get done. I found the other name on social media inside 20 minutes. Her name was Renata. Her profile was mostly private, but her profile picture showed her standing in what was unmistakably the same kitchen from the leasing office's listing photos. Same tile, same window. Further back in her feed, an old public photo of her and Daniel together at a restaurant, tagged, dated 8 months before he'd gotten down on one knee in front of 200 people for me. I sat with that for 2 full days. I went to work. I answered his texts with the same warmth I always had. The worst of it happened on the second night, over dinner, when he pulled up a spreadsheet on his phone of honeymoon flight prices and slid it across the table like he was showing me a gift. "Portugal's cheaper in October," he said, "but Greece has better reviews for the villa." I looked at the spreadsheet, at his handwriting in the notes column, careful and precise the way it always was, and I said, "Greece looks beautiful," and meant absolutely nothing by it, and he had no idea. He reached across the table and took my hand while the waiter cleared our plates, and I let him, because some part of me needed to know exactly how far he was capable of going before I did anything about it. Sophia checked in twice a day, and on that second night, she called instead of texting, her voice low, like she was worried someone might overhear, even though she was alone in her own apartment. "How are you actually doing this?" she asked, sitting across from him at dinner, letting him touch you like nothing's wrong. I told her honestly, "I'm not calm, I'm just not ready yet. There's a difference." She went quiet on the other end for a second, and then she said the thing that had been sitting underneath everything since the lease. "Maya, what if there's a version of this where he finds out you know before you're ready? What if he sees something on your face?" I hadn't let myself think about that yet, and once she said it out loud, I couldn't stop. That night, I lay awake next to Daniel, listening to him breathe evenly beside me, replaying every text I'd sent him that day, checking it for cracks, wondering if calm could actually be a performance good enough to survive 48 more hours. On the third day, I called Renata. I'd typed her number into my phone the night before and just stared at it for almost an hour, thumb hovering over the call button, running through every version of how this could go. She could hang up on me. She could already know and be lying to him right alongside him. She could scream. She could not believe me at all and go straight to Daniel with a warning before I'd even gotten a word out. And then I'd lose whatever advantage 2 days of silence had bought me. I dialed once, let it ring, and hung up before it connected, my heart going hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. Then I made myself dial again. She answered on the 4th ring, wary, the way you answer a number you don't recognize. "Hello?" For a second, I didn't say anything. Just 2 women breathing on either end of a call that was about to change what both of us thought we knew about our own lives. Then I made myself say it. "Hi, my name is Maya. I don't know you, but I think we might know the same man. Daniel." A pause. "Okay?" She said it carefully, guarded like she was already bracing for something. "I found your name on a lease," I said, "for an apartment. Signed 3 weeks ago, with his name on it too." I kept my voice as gentle as I could manage. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to know I'm not trying to hurt you by asking it. Did you know he proposed to someone else 4 days ago, at his sister's wedding?" There was a long silence on the line before she said, very quietly, "He told me he lived alone." Her voice cracked on the word alone in a way I recognized immediately, because it was the exact sound of someone's entire understanding of their life falling out from under them in real time. "We were supposed to sign the new lease together in the spring," she said. "Make it official. He said he was dealing with some family stuff on weekends, helping his sister plan her wedding. That's what he told me. That's the whole reason he's been so busy." A shaky breath. There's no way he was doing both at the same time. "I think he was," I said. "I'm sorry. I think he's been doing both for a long time." We stayed on the phone for almost 2 hours. We compared dates first, cautiously, like two people building a timeline they were both afraid to finish. Then photos. Then small details that suddenly made horrible sense together. The weekends he was traveling for work. The phone he always kept face down. The way he'd occasionally call me by the wrong name in his sleep and laugh it off in the morning, blaming a dream he could never quite remember. I want to see his face when we're both standing in the same room, Renata said, somewhere near the end of the call, her voice steadier now than it had been at the start. Not to hurt him, I just want to watch him try to explain it. I told her I understood completely, because I wanted the exact same thing. We met in person 2 days later at a coffee shop halfway between our apartments, both of us a little afraid of what it would feel like to sit across from the other woman. It didn't feel like that at all. It felt like sitting across from someone who'd survived the same accident. She ordered a black coffee and didn't touch it. I ordered tea and didn't touch mine either. I keep going back through everything he ever told me, Renata said, turning her cup slowly on the table without drinking it, trying to figure out which parts were even real. I told her I'd been doing the exact same thing since the moment I found the lease. We went through the calendar together on her phone, cross-referencing weekends, and it was almost funny, in the worst possible way. How neatly our two versions of Daniel's life fit together into one complete, ordinary man, juggling two women who each thought they were the only one. I don't want to just disappear from this and let him keep going like nothing happened, she said eventually. I want him to have to stand in a room and actually answer for it, in front of people who love him. So do I said. She still had a key to the apartment. I still had a ring on my finger and an engagement party his family was already planning for the following weekend. We decided together, calmly, over drinks that went cold while we talked, exactly how we wanted this to end. The party was at his parents' house, the same house I'd eaten dinner in probably 50 times over 3 years. Family, friends, his sister Sarah and her new husband, my parents too, everyone dressed up and drinking champagne his father had bought specifically for the occasion. Renata and I arrived separately, an hour apart, exactly as planned. I went first, played the happy fiancé for 45 minutes, let Daniel walk me around, introducing me to relatives I hadn't met yet, his hand warm on the small of my back the entire time, like nothing in the world was wrong. I smiled at every single person he introduced me to. I let his aunt tell me about her own wedding in 1994. I ate a deviled egg off a tray his mother had spent all morning arranging. Then Renata walked in. Uninvited, but not unwelcome, because I told her the door would be open, and nobody questions a woman who walks in like she belongs there. She was wearing dark green, and she looked, for one unguarded second, exactly as nervous as I felt. Daniel's face when he saw her cross the room is something his own mother told me afterward she will never forget as long as she lives. He physically stepped backward into the dessert table, knocking a stack of plates into the frosting, and the whole room's conversation dropped by half. Renata didn't yell. She'd decided, like me, that yelling wasn't the point. She crossed the room slowly, unhurried, and stopped in front of his mother first. "Hello, Linda," she said, using her name because she'd apparently met her twice before under a completely different understanding of who she was to this family. Linda's face went white. Her champagne glass stopped halfway to her mouth. Then, Renata turned to Daniel, and her voice carried across a suddenly very quiet living room. "So," she said, "which one of us did you actually decide was getting your last name?" Nobody spoke. I watched him open his mouth twice and say nothing both times, his eyes moving between the two of us like he was still trying to work out which lie might still be salvageable. His sister set her wine glass down very carefully on the mantel, the way people do when they need their hands free for whatever happens next. "Daniel," his own mother said, very quietly into the silence. "What is she talking about?" He finally found his voice, but what came out wasn't an apology. "It's not what it looks like," he said, and when nobody's expression changed, he tried again, faster now, talking directly to Renata like the rest of the room had disappeared. I was going to tell you everything. I swear. Right after the wedding. I just needed a little more time to figure out. He stopped himself mid-sentence, hearing it out loud a half-second too late, aware of exactly how it sounded to say, figure out, about a woman he'd proposed to 4 days earlier in front of 200 people. Figure out what? Renata said, her voice perfectly even. Which one of us you were actually going to marry, or how much longer you were going to let me sign a lease renewal with you, believing we were building a life together while you were already planning a wedding to someone else? He opened his mouth again and nothing came out. That was the whole answer, right there, in the silence where a real one should have been. That was when his sister lost it. She'd been standing near the mantel, wineglass set down, jaw tight, and something in her finally snapped loose. Are you serious right now? She said, her voice cracking upward, loud enough that the last few side conversations in the room died completely. You proposed at my wedding, Daniel. You took the microphone out of my husband's best man's hand at my reception in front of my in-laws to do this, and the entire time you were already renting an apartment with someone else's name on the lease? She was crying now, furious tears, the kind that come from being genuinely stunned rather than sad. I have people asking me all week if it was too much that you upstaged the actual bride at her own wedding. Do you understand what I told them? I told them you were just that in love. I defended you. Sarah, he started. Don't, she said, holding a hand up like she physically couldn't hear her own name in his mouth right now. You didn't just lie to her. She pointed at me, then at Renata. Or to her. You used my wedding as a prop. You made my day about you, and it wasn't even real. Her voice dropped, harder now, final. Get out of this house, tonight. I mean it, Daniel. Nobody moved to stop him. His own father just stepped aside from the doorway. I didn't need to add anything else. The room did the rest of the work on its own. I took the ring off and set it down gently on the dessert table, right next to the cake with our names on it, and left with my parents. Renata left separately, but we found each other in the driveway first, standing next to our cars in the cold. Neither of us quite ready to say goodbye to the only other person who understood exactly what the last 4 days had been like. She just hugged me, and I let her. My mother found me later that night, sitting on the edge of my old bed at my parents' house, still in the dress I'd worn to the party, my shoes kicked off somewhere by the door. She didn't ask me anything at first. She just sat down next to me, took my hand the way she used to when I was small, and had scraped a knee badly enough that talking about it too soon would only make it worse, and let the silence sit there until I was ready to fill it. Eventually, I broke the silence myself. How much of it did you see? I asked. Before tonight. Be honest with me. She was quiet for a long moment, long enough that I thought she wasn't going to answer at all, and then she said, I always thought it was strange how fast he pushed for this. 3 years of nothing urgent, and then suddenly he needs 200 witnesses and a microphone. I used to wonder if that was the point, that if enough people watched him propose and cried about it, nobody would ever be able to look at him and wonder if he really meant it, including you. Then why didn't you ever say anything? I asked. She looked down at our hands instead of at me. Because a feeling isn't proof, and I didn't want to be the mother who poisoned her daughter's engagement over nothing, who made you doubt the best thing in your life because of some instinct I couldn't even explain to myself, let alone to you. Her voice caught slightly on the word instinct. I told myself I was protecting you by staying quiet. I've been sitting in that house all night wondering if I actually just left you alone with it for 3 extra years. I told her she didn't owe me an apology for a feeling she couldn't prove. I meant it, completely. But sitting there in my childhood bedroom, still in the dress that smelled faintly of someone else's champagne and dessert table frosting, I finally understood something I hadn't let myself think clearly about yet. My mother's silence and Renata's phone call had come from the exact same fear, the fear of being wrong, of causing damage over a suspicion instead of a certainty. The only difference was that Renata had a lease with 2 names on it, and my mother only ever had a feeling. Feelings get carried quietly for years. Evidence gets acted on in days. My mother stayed until I fell asleep, still in my dress, her hand in mine the entire time. Renata and I are friends now, genuinely. We meet for coffee every couple of months, the same coffee shop where we first sat across from each other as virtual strangers, and we joke, in the specific way you can only joke about something once enough time has passed, that between the two of us, we probably knew Daniel better collectively than either of us ever knew him alone. I heard through mutual friends that he moved to another city about 6 months later. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he's engaged again. Whether he's learned anything, whether there's a third woman somewhere right now who doesn't yet know what his silence means when he tells her he's handling some family stuff on a weekend she can't account for. What I do know is that people ask me sometimes if I wish I'd handled it more privately, quietly, without involving his whole family at that party. And I think about the 200 people who watched him propose to me and cried real tears, believing they were watching something honest. He didn't give me a private proposal. I didn't owe him a private ending. Tell me, was showing up at that party too far, or exactly enough? If you believe the truth, always finds its way to the surface. Hit subscribe. We've got another story dropping soon, and this one might be the most tangled betrayal we've heard from a viewer yet.